Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bottom Line, the video TV show that sits down with interesting people and leaders in the nonprofit space and the impact space who have stories to tell, and you are here to listen because they have great stories, they have great advice and information. And this show was created because a lot of people in the nonprofit and the impact space don't usually get the airtime they deserve to share the reasons why they got into these spaces, particularly. And when you start hearing their stories and they open their mouths and they open their hearts and they explain what's going on and why they're involved in this world, it starts to really resonate. And we're so happy that we're able to produce this show, to be able to have great guests and great stories on. And today's a day like no other. We're sitting down with Chris Coulter from the Mentor Well organization. He's not really an organization, but he'll talk about that later. And I connected with Chris on LinkedIn because I started reading some of his posts and I just felt really, really moved by what he was writing about. But it was because it was all from the heart. It was all about personal experience. And I said, I got to talk to this guy and get him on our show because I really love to learn more about what they do and how they do it. So we're sitting down today with Chris, and he's going to share his story. So before we dive into the show, don't forget to like and subscribe to this show on all major podcasting platforms, as well as our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bottom Line Show, and stream it on Bravehearts TV, which you can find in your Roku app. And without further ado, nobody cares about me. Let's talk about you. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing all right today. I really am. The fact that I get to sit down and talk to you and finally put face to pen is fantastic. So, what's your deal?
What's my deal? Okay, well, that's a loaded question. I guess the way to probably describe, I, I'm a dad first, and unfortunately, what transpired, why I built the Mentor Well was because it was born from tragedy. It was born from the loss of my 14-year-old daughter, Maddie, to suicide. And after probably 10 years of trying to figure out just just going through the whole grieving process, I wanted to ensure that another family didn't have to endure the same hardship and pain, heartache and pain that our family endured. So that's why I created the Mentor Well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, it started out of grief. And what did you do with that? Like when you started the Mentor Well, like what type of things do you guys do? What's your story? Because I know before we started recording, you started talking a little bit more in depth about it. So I'm like, I was hoping we'll save it for the recording. So what is the Mentor Well? What is the organization do, and how do they do it? How do they impact the lives of people so that they don't end up like you did in your situation?
Yeah, and I think I need to kind of back up a little bit. So after we lost Maddie, which was in April of 2015, I wasn't capable of doing a lot. I was really the only thing I was able to do was write. And I started writing for myself. And then my partner at the time, she said, you should start sharing this stuff. It's invaluable. And I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from it. So I started to publish it on different social streams. And I got this outpouring of direct messages from people. And so over the years, I have talked to more than 2,500 parents who have, because I shared my story and our vulnerability and what we endured and encountered as a family, I received so many messages of thank you for writing this because we're going through something similar. And and three questions became probably more. I had three questions asked of me more than anything else. First one was, how do I know if my teen is struggling or if this is just normal teenage behavior? And I should preface, Sean, I should say adolescent because I have conversations with parents who are as young as 8 and into their mid 20s who parents are still challenged with what their kids are going through. So the first one, how do I know if my teen is struggling or just normal teenage behavior? The second is, how do I talk to my child without shutting them down, which is which is a significant issue with many parents. And the third is, where do I go for mental health resources if and when I require them? So based upon that, the mentor well initially was intended to be a mentoring program for kids who were going through and struggling um, with some emotional issues. It could be navigating a divorce, it could be bullying, it could be academic challenges, it could be sports injuries, it could be any number of things. And some kids have this apprehension about talking to a therapist for whatever reason. Um, and the premise behind it was partner these kids up with someone who's gone through something similar in life. In Maddie's case, she navigated a pretty bitter divorce. So if you partner a child up with someone who may have navigated something similarly, not exactly the same, but something relatable, and kind of help to guide and show that child that there is a way forward. But the problem was, I had so many parents who reached out to me, said, "Oh, Chris, my kid won't see a therapist, but they'll see a mentor." The challenge is we're not a replacement for therapy. We're never intended to be. So I'd have to decline them. So what I realized, I had to go further upstream. I had to get to parents before they were in crisis mode. And to do that, I figured the best tact to take was going through corporations, because I discovered that 1 in 4 working parents are dealing with a struggling child at home. And so that impacts companies' bottom line significantly through productivity, absenteeism, retention. So I went back to those 3 questions that I mentioned previously, and that became the foundation for something I created called the Lifeline Parent Workshops. So now I go into corporations. I I I share with parents how to identify if their kid's struggling or if this is normal teenage behavior. And it's amazing. And Sean, I start the workshop off with a tool that I created called the Teen Signal Check, which basically is 14 questions, gender specific, and parents can go through based upon kind of the last 2 week timeline and find out whether their child registers green, yellow, or red. Green meaning good, yellow meaning caution, red meaning, okay, you have to pay attention to this, which addressed the big concern about parents waiting too long. So it created some urgency in the eyes of the parents. So, and then from there, I realized that as important as it is to talk to these parents, it's equally important for managers within these corporations to be able to identify and to be able to have compassionate conversations with their team members, because parents are, it's not even parents, people are dealing with so much stuff right now that if you want to be able to get the best out of that person, they have to have psychological safety in that they feel they can talk to their managers about this stuff. Otherwise, they walk in and within 30 seconds, they know if they regret having that conversation or whether they were glad they did. So that's kind of a bit of a kind of a 30,000 foot perspective as to what I do. And it's always evolving and morphing into something else. But ultimately, it comes down to um, helping parents and families. And now we're just using companies to help deliver that message.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing, and I find it really smart how you identified that the way to get to the parents is through their places of work, and bringing the work into it, because now you're able to go in and do corporate trainings with these parents, And because the companies see, wait a minute, if this guy's struggling because his kid's struggling, he's not going to show up to work. Now we have a way to fix that, and I think that's really smart.
Well, you know what? I know what I went through and I have my own business, but when I was going through all of my stuff with Maddie, my inability to be able to actually be productive, I felt completely isolated and alone. It impacted my productivity probably probably 80, 90% productivity loss. And then ultimately, from a company standpoint, you're gonna lose some of your best people if you don't identify it earlier on. And when it costs 50 to 200% of an individual's salary to replace that individual, you think about the training cost to be able to identify this
Mm-hmm.
is really minimal compared to the cost of having to replace that person.
Right. No, for sure. For sure, for sure. No, it's interesting how your system works. I actually work with. I'm part of a. I volunteer with a youth organization that a friend of mine started, where he does the same thing. He works with teens, and he's very involved with them. And like you said, like a lot of them, they'd rather speak with a mentor and talk to them about their problems than go tell their parents or tell a therapist. And it's, I see it every week with these boys, like we do with a lot of boys, and they've got a lot of different issues, a lot of anger issues, and some of them my friend runs the whole thing, and he's got kids in his house like from all hours just talking to them, and because they'd rather talk to somebody who's neutral and who's going to listen to them than potentially their parents. And it's no it's and but I've seen the development, the improvement with a lot of these kids since he started working with them. They've started coming to some of our programs, and their behavioral issues have like decreased, and they become a bit more open to conversation and things like that.
I was chuckling only because parents think they can be their kid's mentor. The challenge is, and I've discovered this just through my this parent support group, online parent support group that I run. It's got membership all over the world. But kids start to talk, and parents instinctively want to jump in and give advice or fix it, which is a surefire way to shut your kid down. And so that whole question about how do I get my child to talk to me without shutting down, it becomes pretty easy. You just button
Well,
your lip and listen. It
Well, it's
makes a big
interesting
difference.
though. What's interesting I've seen too is that a lot of the parents fight this with this guy, with my friend. Is like they're like, how, like, what are you doing to my kid? Why is he not talking to me? Why is he not doing this with me? Like, well, it's because you're an asshole. Like you're an asshole. No, we had this conversation actually because we're trying to run a fundraising campaign. I said, well, listen, you've got all these kids, all these boys come through every week, and what about the parents? Are the parents into this? And he's like, how many people call me and yell at me and tell me, what the hell are you doing with my kid? Why is your kid talking to me to me, not to you, or whatever, like. And he's like, the parents don't care. And I'm like, well, I guess that's why they're here.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, and your friend is wiser than many parents. We just they don't get it, and the key is you want your kid talking to someone as opposed to just keeping them it all inside. And your friend represents a safe space, probably sits and listens first, which is the way you need to address these individuals, and just either lean in. And this is a question that I ask and I tell parents, because parents now go, this was probably one of the best pieces of advice I ever received. So if your child starts talking and your instinct is to jump into fix it mode, you you ask this question to your child: is this a fix it or a feel it conversation?
Mm.
Meaning, do you want me to just to lean in and listen, or do you want do you want my advice? And the irony is 90% of the time, parents want to fix it. 90% of the time, kids just want you to listen. So, and when your child actually answers that, make sure you adhere to what their wishes are. And that's one single way for a lot of parents to be able um, to help with reparation of the relationship. And it doesn't take much other than just listening more than you speak.
Right. No, for sure. For sure, for sure. And, it's interesting, if you rearrange the word listen, you get silent. If you rearrange the
Hmm.
letters in the word listen, you get silent. So you just got to, as you said, shut your mouth and just listen.
I never even thought about that. I'm going to take that away with me today, Sean.
Awesome. No, I mean, so in what type of projects, what type of programs do you guys do that bring the kids and the mentors together, and in what type of spaces, and what type of impact have you seen from this since doing this, and how has it continued the growth of the organization?
The growth has been interesting, been very interesting. Uh, what we see from the mentees' standpoint is a boost in confidence. Um, they're, they they have a trusted source they can talk to, which ultimately is, I think, is the most important thing. Um, it helps give them direction, and we focus on elements of emotional intelligence, self-regulation, self-awareness, conflict resolution. And we see that kids who may have had a really conflicting relationship with their parents at time, or one of the parents, we're able to see them start to navigate those difficult conversations themselves. And what used to escalate, we're showing them how to de-escalate these conflicts. But as far as so the workshops, anyone who goes into our workshops, our parenting workshops, they get access to our parent support community. Not everyone's going to want to join it because not everyone's going through something,
Right.
but those those parents who are dealing with some heavy crap, um, they feel very isolated and they don't have anywhere to go. So this gives them a forum, an objective, non-judgmental forum for parents who are going through something very similar and relatable to them. So not only are we impacting the kids in their access to treatment or access to feeling better about themselves, but parents are also in a position where a they have a forum that they can talk to, because when our kids struggle, parents struggle too.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, and it's really powerful. So when you're running your organization, do you guys take donations? Like, how are you funded? Because you said you're not really a nonprofit; you're more of an impact organization. So, like, how
Yeah,
are
no,
you funded?
we're right now we're a for-profit organization. My long-term intent is to turn an aspect into, I would love to be able to provide mentorship for those who can't afford it. I don't want this to be a have not entity. But right now, and that was one of the reasons why I went to corporations, if it had to be funded individually, times are tough. Certain individuals, they can't afford it. It's
Right.
not, they don't have the luxury of disposable income.
Right.
Corporations have a lot deeper pockets, and there is also a tangible benefit to corporations who participate. So they're gladly willing to participate because they get the net benefit of creating that bridge in the relationship between employee employer.
Nice. So you're so mostly corporate sponsors, and so when you go in to do a training, you charge the corporation, and then they put it on. Do you
Yeah.
do you find that any of the parents ever give you a donation? Like, when they're like, "Wow, thank you so much for like saving my kid." Do they ever like throw you a couple bucks?
No, I'm not looking for that. You know what? Maybe one day when we actually have the charitable arm set up, gladly do that. But you know what? I think I have had parents come up to me and say, because the interesting thing, Sean, is when someone is struggling, they're often struggling in silence, and go into the office and they try to perform their work, and they're basically they're spending probably a split part of their day between managing the crap in their life that's going on in the home front and managing their workload. And 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 when we can come in, and I'm not sure what the kind of the healthcare status is in Israel's like, but in Canada, yes, we're a public healthcare system, but you have huge waiting lists. So I've
Yes.
walked into corporations, especially as it relates to mental health, and I've walked into corporations and I give my personal email out because there's a stigma still. No one wants to put their hand up and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm dealing with this on the home front." So I give them my personal email, and they can reach out to me and share what's going on in their life. It's all strictly confidential. But the interesting thing that comes to this sometimes, I'll get probably 6, 7 emails before I've even left a presentation, and
Wow.
I've had parents who have come to me and said, Chris, we're trying to navigate the mental health landscape right now. My son has been on a 4 month waiting list, and we're still 2 months away from being able to see the appropriate practitioner. Well, in Canada, I have an expedited referral service. I was able to get that person in within days or weeks as opposed to months.
Wow.
So just when you see a parent walking in and there's that level of stress and walking out like, "Ah, I got this covered." It just allows them to kind of exhale.
That's amazing. So I just wanted to go back to when I was telling you about how my friend gets a lot of pushback from the parents and a lot of animosity from the parents. Do you get a lot of that also, or the parents are coming to you? They're saying, "Hey, can you please help me?"
Well, it's funny. It's one of those situations where most parents don't acknowledge that they jump into fix it mode, or they're always trying to give advice to their kids. And I say this to them. I said, "Okay, do yourself a favor. Next time you're having a conversation with your child, like record it and see how much advice you're giving as opposed to listening." And most just will go, "Wow, I had no idea that I kind of overtook the conversation and expressed myself, or through myself at at the child." So it's I think self-awareness is a key tool for a lot of parents. Some will openly admit it, most don't, and so it is a reality check. And I still do it too. I'm the first one to admit, man, I used to jump into fix it mode all the time. And now with my boys, I go, if I do that, just shut me down. Just say, Dad, uh-uh, you're doing it. And so, you know what? It almost becomes almost an inside joke now.
Wow. So through your work with the Mentor Well, how has it impacted your life, and how has it impacted the lives of all the people you've been working with and helping? And what are some of your success stories?
Um, Success stories. I think it's those parents who I go in and kind of and when I do, I come at it from a lived experience perspective. I'm not a practitioner. I'm a dad first who happened to experience the worst imaginable thing as a parent. And I think when I open up with vulnerability and authenticity, they just go, wow, this is real. This could happen. And when you look at the statistics now, so I think it's those who thank me, who go, thank you so much. Those who walk up to me at the end of a presentation, although most of the presentations I do are online.
Mm.
Um, it's just knowing you made a difference. And so I will say I will have a it's a funny story. So when you said, does someone throw you a few bucks? So I did a few months ago, I did a workshop for a company. They they were getting they were out of the US, and they said, Chris, we only have X amount of dollars. And I said, no problem. You know what? If you give me an honest referral or recommendation or testimonial, you know what? I'm happy to give you a bit of a break financially. Well, at the end of the session, she sent me, he said, you moved our company so much, i will find the I will find the funds to fund your regular fee. We'll just figure it out. Our people thought so much of the presentation and impacted us so much. So you know what, I guess that means I think they probably got a lot out of the presentation.
That's amazing. So, as we wrap up this episode, what piece of advice would you give to parents who are listening or watching the show? What piece of advice would you give to parents who are watching the show right now, that they can take away with them and start working on themselves, like right now?
I think probably going back to it, you have to have a listen first mentality, and if you come have a conversation with your child from a perspective of not a hierarchical one, but having one of kind of mutual respect, you'll find that the conversation will unfold a lot more. Let's put it. It'll come off a lot with a lot less conflict. So going back to that question, I said, if your child starts talking to you, I would highly recommend asking the question, is this a fix it or feel it conversation? And then when they answer, listen to them.
It's amazing. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm going to put all of Chris's information in the show notes, which you can find the full episode on the YouTube channel as well as on Bravehearts TV. And the episode with all the information about Chris will be on our site, givesweet.com. And you'll be able to connect with Chris and you'll be able to learn more about the Mentor Well. You'll be able to get involved with the Mentor Well if this is something you're looking to do. And, Chris, wow, it was a real pleasure connecting with you. And I'm so happy that we finally did this. And thank you so much for joining me on the show.
I appreciate it, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show on YouTube as well as on the Bravehearts TV app. And until the next episode, I'm so sorry. Until the next time we meet again, folks, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Sean Littman from Beyond the Bottom Line, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.